The MMORPG genre has produced some of the most immersive and unforgettable gaming experiences. However, despite their innovation and passionate communities, many titles have faced mismanagement, financial troubles, or simply bad luck, leading to their premature demise. This is a deep dive into 20 MMORPGs that shouldn't have failed, ranked from the least to the most devastating loss. The Ultima franchise pioneered the MMORPG genre with Ultima Online, and when Ultima X Odyssey was announced in 2003, expectations were sky high. It was set to redefine the genre with its unique virtue system, a combat system blending action and strategy, and a world that reacted to player choices. However, before it could even reach players, Electronic Arts abruptly canceled it in 2004. Many speculate that the success of World of Warcraft was already casting a shadow over other MMORPGs in development, and EA chose to abandon ship before taking a financial risk. Console MMORPGs have always struggled compared to their PC counterparts, but True Fantasy Live Online had the potential to change that. Developed by Level 5 for the Xbox, the game promised a fully realized fantasy world, deep social interactions, and an immersive role-playing experience. It was ambitious for its time, and early previews were met with excitement. But development issues combined with Microsoft's strict deadlines and demands led to its cancellation in 2004 before it ever had a chance to launch. Few MMORPGs have had the same level of hype as Tabula Rasa. Designed by Ultima Online creator Richard Garriott, it aimed to revolutionize the genre by combining fast-paced shooter mechanics with traditional MMORPG elements. The sci-fi setting was fresh, the action was intense, and the narrative-driven structure gave it a unique feel. However, a rocky development cycle, multiple redesigns, and financial mismanagement led to its downfall. It launched in 2007, but by 2009, the servers were shut down, leaving fans wondering what could have been. Warhammer's Dark Fantasy universe seemed like the perfect fit for an MMORPG. Warhammer Online launched in 2008 with an emphasis on large-scale PvP combat and a deep, immersive world. Early reviews praised its realm versus realm battles, which were some of the best seen in an MMO at the time. Unfortunately, poor content updates, technical issues, and an over-reliance on PvP without enough PvE content led to its decline. By 2013, the game was officially shut down, much to the dismay of its loyal player base. One of the genre's pioneers, Asheron's Call, debuted in 1999 and was ahead of its time in many ways. It featured a dynamic world, evolving narratives, and real-time monthly events that changed the game world permanently. While World of Warcraft overshadowed it in the mid-2000s, Asheron's Call still had a dedicated following. Unfortunately, with Microsoft abandoning support and Turbine moving on to other projects, the servers shut down in 2017, ending an era. Before EverQuest and World of Warcraft, there was The Realm Online, one of the first graphical MMORPGs. Launched in 1996, it featured turn-based combat, a charming fantasy world, and one of the first truly social online communities. Despite its age, it maintained a niche following for decades. However, by 2022, the game finally shut down after losing its remaining financial backing. For many, The Realm Online was a relic of the past, but for those who played it, it was a foundational MMORPG that deserved a better fate. Superhero MMOs are rare, and none have matched what City of Heroes achieved. Released in 2004, it featured the deepest character customization ever seen in an MMORPG, allowing players to create their own superheroes and fight crime in an open-world metropolis. The combat was fun, the social features were strong, and its role-playing community was legendary. Despite a dedicated player base, publisher NCSoft abruptly shut it down in 2012, sparking outrage. Fan efforts led to private servers and eventually an official revival in 2024. The Matrix Online was one of the most ambitious licensed MMOs of its time, set in the same dystopian digital world as the legendary sci-fi films. Players were able to jack into the simulation, interact with agents, hack into secret locations, and even influence the game's evolving story, which was crafted by live game masters in real time. However, despite endless role-playing potential and deep lore connections, the game suffered from lackluster combat, repetitive missions, and a lack of meaningful updates that made its open world feel empty. Warner Bros. Pulled the plug in 2009, marking the end of what could have been an incredible expansion of the Matrix universe. Even today, fans still mourn its loss, knowing that with modern technology and a new Matrix film franchise, The Matrix Online could have been reborn as a true evolution of its original vision, one that never got to fully realize its potential. An MMO set in the Star Wars universe should have been a guaranteed success, and for a while, Star Wars Galaxies was exactly that. Launched in 2003, it was an ambitious sandbox that let players live out their Star Wars fantasies, whether as smugglers, bounty hunters, or traders. However, the infamous New Game Enhancements update in 2005 drastically altered gameplay, angering longtime players. By the time Star Wars: The Old Republic came out, Galaxies was on its last legs, shutting down in 2011. Fans still mourn its loss. Rift was supposed to be the MMO that could challenge World of Warcraft, and for a while it looked like it might. Launched in 2011, it introduced dynamic world events in the form of rifts, spontaneous large-scale battles that could change entire zones in real time. Its flexible class system allowed for deep customization, and its PvE and PvP content were some of the best in the genre. For a time, Rift thrived, offering an alternative to the stagnant WoW formula, and its player base swelled. However, as the years went on, Trion Worlds struggled to keep up with content updates, and as the MMO market became oversaturated, Rift gradually faded into obscurity. A transition to a free-to-play model brought in microtransactions, alienating many longtime players. Although it still exists in a maintenance mode state, it is a shadow of its former self. Elyon, formerly known as Ascent: Infinite Realm, had all the makings of a next-gen fantasy MMORPG, boasting fast-paced action combat, sprawling open-world PvP, and even aerial battles with airships. Developed by Cacao Games and Bluehole, the same studio behind Terra, it promised a high-octane, skill-based experience that could push the MMO genre forward. However, Alien suffered from a complete identity crisis. Originally conceived as a steampunk fantasy MMO, the game underwent massive redesigns before release, stripping away many of its unique features and settling on a generic action MMO format. By the time it launched in 2021, it was met with disinterest and frustration from both MMO veterans and newcomers. Poor optimization, pay-to-win mechanics, and a general lack of compelling endgame content sealed its fate. Barely lasting over a year in the West, Elyon was quietly shut down in 2023, becoming yet another example of how shifting development priorities and poor execution can kill an MMORPG before it even has a chance to grow. With a team led by former EverQuest developers, Vanguard: Saga of Heroes was envisioned as the spiritual successor to the classic MMORPG experience, designed to bring deep immersion and complex gameplay back to the genre. The game featured a staggering 19 playable races and 20 classes, allowing for an unprecedented level of character diversity. The diplomacy system added a political layer to the game, giving players the ability to negotiate, build alliances, and change the world through non-combat means, something virtually unheard of in MMOs at the time. The world itself was vast and stunning, offering seamless exploration across land, sea, and air. Unfortunately, all of this ambition came at a cost. The game launched in a deeply unfinished state, riddled with bugs, performance issues, and broken mechanics. While later updates addressed some of these problems, the damage had been done. Player numbers dwindled, and in 2014, Vanguard shut down, leaving behind one of the most heartbreaking examples of wasted potential in MMORPG history. Fans still mourn its loss, believing that with better development time and funding, it could have stood alongside the greats of the genre. Sony Online Entertainment took a wildly different approach with Free Realms, offering an MMORPG experience that was lighthearted, casual, and accessible to players of all ages. Released in 2009, it was a game unlike anything else in the genre, packed with mini-games, kart racing, farming, pet training, fishing, and even card battles. It was designed to be an MMORPG where combat wasn't the main focus, and players could spend their time crafting, exploring, and engaging in social activities instead. The game had an impressive following, boasting millions of players at its peak, and for a while it seemed like Free Realms was destined to be a long-term hit. However, behind the scenes, SOE struggled to justify maintaining it, as it didn't bring in the kind of revenue that their other MMOs did. In 2014, Sony abruptly shut it down, citing a shift in company priorities. To this day, Free Realms remains one of the most requested MMO revivals, as no other game has truly captured its unique blend of activities and freeform fun. Firefall was an MMO shooter that seemed like it could redefine the genre. Developed by Red 5 Studios, the game blended MMORPG progression with fast-paced combat, jetpack-powered movement, and a beautifully designed open-world sci-fi setting. The game's dynamic PvE elements, with ever-changing alien invasions and large-scale battles, set it apart from other MMOs at the time. However, Firefall suffered from severe development mismanagement. The game's direction changed multiple times over the years, leading to an identity crisis that confused its player base. At one point, the game was even reworked to be more of a traditional shooter, alienating those who loved its MMORPG mechanics. By the time Firefall officially launched in 2014, it had already lost much of its early hype, and updates became more sporadic. In 2017, servers were quietly shut down. Archeage was supposed to be the ultimate sandbox MMORPG, offering players complete freedom to build, trade, wage wars, and even become criminals in a world where every action had consequences. The game had player-driven economies, ship battles, castle sieges, and a robust housing system, making it a dream come true for fans of emergent gameplay. Initially, it looked like Archeage would deliver on these promises, attracting a dedicated following of players who wanted something different from the traditional theme park MMOs. However, the game's downfall came from aggressive monetization and pay-to-win mechanics. The developers introduced systems that allowed players to buy advantages, leading to widespread frustration among its community. What could have been an MMO that thrived for decades became a cautionary tale of how greedy business models can ruin even the most innovative games. Despite attempts to revive it through relaunches and new servers, the damage was irreversible. Master x Master was an oddity in the MMORPG space, a hybrid between a MOBA and an MMO, offering PvE and PvP content in equal measure. It introduced a unique tag team mechanic allowing players to swap between two different characters mid-battle, creating dynamic and strategic combat that set it apart from other MOBAs. The game featured characters from NCSoft's most beloved franchises, including Guild Wars, Blade and Soul, and Lineage, making it a dream project for fans of those games. Unfortunately, Master x Master suffered from a lack of proper marketing and exposure. It launched in 2017, but failed to gain the traction it needed to stay alive. Within just 1 year, NCSoft shut it down, making it one of the most abrupt MMO closures in recent history. Players were stunned by the decision, as the game still had so much untapped potential. To this day, Master x Master is considered one of the most undeserved MMO shutdowns. WildStar was one of the most promising MMORPGs of its time, an electrifying blend of stylized sci-fi, deep player customization, and some of the most engaging combat mechanics the genre had ever seen. Developed by Carbine Studios and published by NCSoft in 2014, it aimed to carve out a space in the MMO world by offering something fast, skill-based, and unforgivingly hardcore, standing in contrast to the more casual, friendly design of other MMORPGs. With telegraphed attacks, dodge mechanics, and a dynamic class system, WildStar brought action combat to the forefront while still maintaining a rich PvE experience, difficult dungeons, and sprawling world events. It had personality too. Its world was filled with quirky humor, larger-than-life characters, and a rebellious attitude that made it feel fresh. Despite its strong start, WildStar struggled to find its footing. Its hardcore endgame content alienated casual players, making it difficult to sustain a large, long-term audience. A late transition to free-to-play in 2015 came too little, too late, as monetization missteps and declining engagement left NCSoft unwilling to keep it afloat. Even though WildStar had one of the best housing systems in MMO history, a unique aesthetic and innovative mechanics, it wasn't enough to keep it alive. By 2018, the servers were shut down, and with them, one of the most inventive MMOs in recent memory was lost. Fans still reminisce about what WildStar could have been if it had received the right balance adjustments and better long-term support, because despite its flaws, few MMORPGs have ever felt quite as alive as WildStar did at its peak. TERA was one of the first MMORPGs to fully embrace action combat, introducing a real-time targeting system that required actual player skill instead of tab targeting. It was fast, fluid, and rewarding for players who mastered its mechanics. The game also featured a massive, beautiful world filled with dynamic dungeons, large-scale PvP, and intricate class design. For years, it thrived as one of the most unique MMOs on the market. However, as publisher shifts and lack of proper updates took their toll, TERA slowly began to decline. By the time it shut down in 2022, it had lost much of its player base, but those who remained mourned its loss. Even today, no MMORPG has fully replicated its masterful combat system, leaving fans longing for its return. EverQuest Next was one of the most ambitious MMORPG projects ever conceived. It aimed to be a revolutionary sequel to the classic EverQuest franchise, featuring emergent AI, destructible environments, and a procedurally generated world that changed based on player actions. Players would have been able to literally reshape the world, carving out tunnels, collapsing buildings, and influencing an evolving narrative. It was a dream MMO that had the potential to push the genre into new territory. But after years of hype, Sony abruptly canceled it in 2016, citing technical difficulties and an inability to meet expectations. Many believe that the project was simply too ambitious for the technology of the time, and instead of scaling it down, Sony decided to scrap it entirely. Blue Protocol was Bandai Namco's attempt to create a visually stunning anime MMORPG, blending the look and feel of a Studio Ghibli film with fast-paced action combat. From its early trailers, it seemed poised to become the next big thing in anime MMOs, with a focus on cooperative dungeon crawling, deep character customization, and a Genshin Impact-style aesthetic. However, its post-launch support was a disaster. The game suffered from long content droughts, poor monetization choices, and a lack of meaningful updates, leading to a quick decline in player interest. Bandai Namco failed to capitalize on its strong start, and by 2025, Blue Protocol was quietly shut down, leaving anime MMO fans devastated by another promising title lost to mismanagement. MMORPGs have come and gone, but the memories, the friendships, and the adventures we shared in these worlds will always stay with us. Each of these games had something special, something that could have made them thrive if given the right support, direction, or simply better timing. But now, it's over to you. What do you think of this list? Were there any MMOs that you loved that didn't make it? Which game's shutdown hit you the hardest? Let's keep the conversation going in the comments. Share your stories, your favorite moments, and which MMORPG you wish could make a comeback. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the MMOs that shouldn't have failed, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more content like this, and ring the notification bell so you never miss an upload. We'll be covering more lost games, forgotten classics, and the evolution of MMORPGs in the future. So stick around for more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.